mom and dad. Your mom and dad. Your mom and dad. Your mom and dad.
Yeah. Wow. Welcome home, family. It's your mom and dad. It's too fast.
We just think we're speeding it back up so that I could slow it down again. Because it's going to get so slow. You know what I mean? So I'm bringing it back up and then we slow it down
You're keeping me on my toes.
That's what we do in a marriage.
Like any romance should. You know what I'm saying? Any romance, we're seeing it in this, the later daters. You're going to be you're on your toes.
From the underworld would, in your novels.
You know what? By the way,
on your toes,
by the way, you being a demon in our D&D games, I'm currently reading a book where in the book, the demon is actually the one who is the super like playful, lovable. You know, when I was thinking about you the entire time, he's like hot, tall, playful, lovable. And I was just like,
well, every demon, we have our different things. Some of us are scary. Some of us are dangerous. Some of us are a little more laid back. Some of us are a little playful. It's all how we do our devilish work.
Oh, it's too early.
But one thing remains, it is too early for this show.
It's too early to talk about devilish play.
Yeah.
No, but family, today we are going to be talking about Netflix's latest reality docuseries called The Later Daters.
Yes.
And so we announced that we were going to do it last episode. And we had just started watching it. We were really liking what we were seeing.
Yeah.
Now, after watching 4 episodes, I love this show.
Really good.
Like, this show is so fantastic because one, there's some seriously cringy dates. So you got that. There's some really funny moments, but then there's also these moments that are like so hopeful and a lot of conversations that Logan, the dating coach, has that ended up spurring conversations between you and me that I'm like thinking about just relationships in general. And I don't know, this is one of these shows where I'm like, I kind of want to show everybody because I feel like it's a great conversation piece and it helped me process. I mean, obviously we've been together for a long time, but even when I was listening to a lot of the thoughts and recommendations, I was like, I got to work on some of that like internal stuff,
Yeah, I agree. And what I also like about this show is also the fact that in the Bachelor world, there's just this, it's very performative.
Yes.
And they also are going to edit out like any moments that make it look a certain way.
And you're like, here's the format. And we all know, here's the rose and you're going to go on this one-on-one date. And
it's very it's very performative. And then I think what's getting more and more popular too is like realness, obviously, so that's why like Love is Blind does so well. Cause it's like, they show the realness, Yeah.
To a certain extent.
I'm just saying like they let the conversations be and they kind of cast generally like what feels more like, what it would be in the real world, which is like some people are crazy, some people are chill, some people, it's just whatever. And the same goes with this, like the dates feel real.
They feel very real.
The people feel real.
Yes.
It doesn't feel like people who are, because maybe it's because there's no glory. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no like, and then you'll be the Bachelor.
Yes,
you know
or
what
you're
I mean?
going to be on
it's
Bachelor
just like
in Paradise.
You're just dating, and it's like another option to maybe have a fun experience while dating.
Yeah.
So I think when you get that, you're able to cast a little more real and a little less like maybe a bunch of people that are trying to get famous, and there's kind of like a lot of So and because of that, also it feels like they don't have like a franchise to protect.
Yes.
They're a lot more just interested in good content, good show. So because of that, I feel like, I don't know, it's just a little more, the characters seem to be a little bit more like enthralling.
I love the cast of this show so far. Like I'm already like, I'm in love with all of them.
They all feel relatable in their own way. Like that's my aunt, that's my mom, that's my dad.
I feel very invested. I love all the kids.
Yes.
I love what they did too. Like the little moments where they'd have them like talk about their first kiss and talk about getting catfished. Like those were fun little like clips to break it up. And then right before they would go on the dates, they'd show the photos of them when they were like in their early 20s next to each other. That made me feel a little teary.
Netflix just doesn't really miss.
Well, and you know who the executive producer of the show is? Michelle Obama.
I thought I saw that and I was like,
Queen.
I think that was wrong.
No,
or
the
like,
Queen.
does someone have the exact same name? I was like, this makes no sense.
It's Michelle Obama.
She just is into TV now?
Well, I think she's done production, and Michelle Obama,
So
you
random.
absolutely crushed this. This is
it was
fantastic.
I was just like, you know, when it's like
you
Mark Wahlberg, our friend Mark Wahlberg. You're just kind of thinking there's another Michelle Obama out there who's like just happens to be a producer at Netflix. Sure. You know what I mean? It's like so random.
Yeah, it's like her production company.
Because it's not like you see her come in, you know what I mean, at some point and it's just like, hi everyone.
Maybe in
like,
the finale.
Maybe there's some sort of host job.
Oh my God,
job.
can you imagine if Michelle Obama
becomes a host?
Comes out and is like fully hosting? Nick Lachey is quaking. Michelle Obama is coming for your gig, Nick Lachey, okay?
Oh
and we all know that she would absolutely crush, so, you know, watch your back, Lachey's. But no, I love this show so much. I'm in love with the characters.
Really
and the people. You know, it doesn't even feel like characters. It's like it feels like this is their real life.
Right.
And I have to say too, when we posted on Instagram and said that we were going to be covering the first 4 episodes and what family are you interested?
Yeah.
Would you like it? I'm going to probably say right now, next week we'll do episodes 5 through 8 because right away we got a bunch of messages from a lot of you who have already started watching it and love it.
Right.
So if you haven't watched it, please do. I'm telling you,
it's good.
Worth the watch. Mm-hmm. Like, it's very much worth the watch.
Yes, it's really good. And it's the first time in a while, if I'm being totally honest, where like, you know, sometimes we can get in this thing where we're recapping shows, we're doing it, and you kind of get in this mode where you're just like on autopilot, like watching the shows. Yeah. But this is the first time in a while I felt like, well, I just would watch this.
Totally.
You know what I mean? Like I found myself getting lost in it.
Well, I found myself
that I had to recap.
Yeah, I was going to say I found myself not taking notes because I was
exactly
like fully in.
And I think that's a good sign. It's a good sign when you're not kind of like in work mode. You're just in like, oh, I got lost in the show, and I'm a couple episodes in, and I forgot to kind of track my thoughts. Yeah, here. I'm just watching it.
And just like The Golden Bachelor, I'm loving. So the age range is pretty much like 55 to 72.
Right.
The people who are our main cast and then also the daters. And I love seeing this age range dating. I love the conversation because it like simultaneously is showing a different side of things that we haven't experienced yet. And at the same time showing that we're all the same, like going through having the same dating issues, the same relationship issues. And what I also liked too with this show is that we had a large variety of people who had gotten divorced like multiple times. Mm-hmm. Whereas, and I feel like in The Golden Bachelor, you know, you'll see like maybe a divorce, but it's a lot of people who have lost a loved one, which is heart-wrenching. And we do have that a little bit in this. But as well, we have people who are like, I got divorced 3 times.
What's much more common.
Or Lori, I've never been in love.
Sure. And that's much more common.
Right.
Like it's much more common to just like they say like, it's like 50 to 70% of like marriages end in divorce.
Yeah.
So it's much more common to have a 50-year-old friend who's divorced.
Of course.
And so I like the fact that it's like, yeah, that's like most of, you know, family friends or people you know or an uncle or whatever. And so.
And then also the element of having Logan, the dating coach there, I loved.
Really
that
good.
They could just chat with her beforehand. She gave them amazing tips and then they could chat with her after and before they go on their next dates and after the dates. I thought that was like an essential part that we see missing in a lot of dating reality TV shows. We always have the host, but the hosts aren't really offering
and not like just a dating coach too. Like a Harvard grad, Google behavioral scientist. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's not even
kind
like,
fascinating.
And here's Greg,
also
who ran a company for, it's like, no. Here's like a lady who is literally like scientifically broken this down and is like a master.
Also kind of terrifying. Like the Google behavioral.
Right. Like she knows what's going on.
Like behind the scene in the dating apps.
Yeah.
I'm like,
I'm deeper than just like, you know, your friend who likes to hook friends up.
Yeah.
It's like, I know what's actually going on.
And I love that they're blind dates. Have you ever been on a blind date before?
No.
Really?
No.
Never once.
I for me,
it's not.
I'm so bad at hiding my expressions and emotions.
Yeah.
That like going on a blind date would be really gnarly for me because I need a little even just a dating app, just showing up to a date where I've never met the person would be really hard because if I'm not feeling it semi immediately, it'd be really hard for me to stomach like 2.5 more hours. Like, you know me, it would be tough for me. So for me, it's like a dating without having never even met them would be a challenge enough. Having, you know, I don't know, tough. Have you?
I have been on one once and it went terribly.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine most do.
Well, I had when you and I were broken up, one of my friends at the time and her boyfriend, I became like the one, they were like, we're going to set you up with all of these people that we know. Okay.
The classic, we're together, so you should be with somebody.
Yeah. And so they were trying to set me up with a few of their different friends, you know, and it was, but I knew the guys, so I could either be like, sure, I'm down to go on a date with them or no. But there was one guy who they were like, hey, we want to set you up on this blind date with him. So I had never seen him. You know, at the time, social media was minimal, so I didn't like see a social media from him. So I knew nothing about him and didn't know what he looked like. And they're like, you guys are going to meet at this restaurant. And so we went to the Cheesecake Factory.
Classic.
And this guy, he came in, good looking guy. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, it's fine. It was, let's just say I almost never wanted to speak to my friend again after this, because I'm like, this is what you think I want? This guy came and sat down, creepy as hell.
Yeah.
Okay. Giving George energy during Anise's date, which I can't wait to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
Where the comments coming out of his mouth were so inappropriate. I couldn't even believe it. Yeah. I didn't know. And I was younger at the time too, so I didn't feel as emboldened. I wish I could have been on this blind date now and be like, shut this man down.
Yeah.
But he was just saying these inappropriate things and then also just talking about nonstop about how much money his parents had. It was just like, weird. Well, you know, when I was on dad's boat and it's going to be mine one day.
He's
and I was
giving,
just like,
what's his name?
Leo.
Leo, yeah.
He was. It was like a combo of Leo and then George from this.
Sure.
And I couldn't even stomach it. And then... I can't even believe this. I gave him my number because I didn't have the backbone. Because he's like, can I get your number? I was like, okay. Tip number 1, everyone, never give the number away if you're not interested. And he starts blowing me up nonstop. When are we going on our next date? When are we going on our next date? And I finally message him and I say, hey, I'm so sorry. I'm not really interested in going on the next date. And then he ended up going and telling all of these people who are mutual friends of ours that I was obsessed with him and he wasn't interested.
Sure.
So typical.
Typical.
And that was my blind date.
Listen, you create the narrative. You know what I mean? Don't let the narrative be created for you.
But watching these dates, I'm like, when you've got like a proper blind date set up where you have like experts setting you up, not just like rando friends who you shouldn't trust some of these friends.
No, I don't trust any of your friends to do this.
The blind dates, a lot of them looked like a lot of fun.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Once everyone got in the swing of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of things that go into a blind date, which is also your view of yourself. So there's like this sense of like, I am this way. So if someone hooks you up with someone who you feel like is definitely not the vibe, then you're like, who am I? Do I even know myself? Are my friends the crazy ones? Am I crazy? You know what I mean? It's really like, it can be like a mess with your head experience to do a bunch of blind dating.
But also I feel like what's cool is that you're seeing during these blind dates a lot of people getting to know themselves better.
Sure.
Where when you have a coach, when you have, you know, whether it be a professional coach or like a great friend who's talking you through certain things or a therapist or whatever, that these blind dates, you're like, yeah, I'm learning more about me. And if anything, even if it doesn't work out, this is a practice of knowing myself.
Right.
You know?
Agreed.
Anywho, I want to get straight in.
Yeah, let's go.
But we got to take a quick pause here first, family, because I need to tell you about the new love of my life. Sorry, Evan. In waking and sleeping, and that is our Lisa mattress. Oh my gosh, listen up. We are talking about these later daters, and I'll tell you what, as I get older, I have truly realized how important a good night of sleep is. It is so important no matter your age, and wow, your mattress is a massive part of getting a good night's rest, which is why our Lisa mattress is my love. Okay, we initially got a twin Lisa mattress for the room as the room is being cleared out. And we all started fighting over said mattress and who was going to sleep on this twin. So we actually gave ourselves a little gift and we decided to get a Lisa mattress for our own bed, our own Lisa mattress in our bedroom. And it has been incredible. I sleep in utter heavenly bliss on this thing. Okay. My sleep has absolutely improved since we got this mattress and I wake up feeling refreshed.
Yes.
It's so amazing. So amazing.
Yeah. It's actually pretty incredible how amazing our Lisa mattress is. It's like, cloud level vibes. Using the highest quality materials, Lisa meticulously designs and assembles their mattresses in their own factory for exceptional comfort and support. What's so cool is that Lisa has several different mattress models to choose from, each designed for specific sleep positions and feel preferences. We personally love the Sapira hybrid mattress, and delivery is free, returns are easy, and you have 100 nights to try out your mattress in the comfort of your home. That's crazy, 100 nights, honestly.
Yeah, and I'm just so grateful for the amazing nights of sleep I've been getting with this Lisa mattress. And with Lisa, your purchase has a purpose. Every year, Lisa donates thousands of mattresses to those in need, with more than 40,000 donated to date. Go to lisa.com today to claim your exclusive discount. Lisa is offering 30% off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows for our listeners, okay? That's leesa.com, lisa.com. This is their best offer yet, and it won't last for long. Remember, no matter who you are, there's a Lisa just for you. All right, so let's get into this. Like I said, we're covering episodes 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I say we do our Love is Blindish energy where we go person by person, like main character by main character that we're getting, okay? So I say let's start off with Suzanne.
What a character.
Suzanne is an absolute character. With her southern accent, she is such a hoot.
Yeah,
she says, I love my big hair. What can I say? I love my big hair.
I love my big hair and I cannot lie.
And I cannot lie, and I love my dogs. Well,
my real dogs and my Georgia Bulldogs.
My real dogs and my Georgia Bulldogs. And if the man that I'm with does not love the Georgia Bulldogs, it is a massive ick, and I do not think I can recover.
Yeah, you know what's funny? That is one of those things that like when you're sweet and fun and charming, you can get away with saying that shit. But like imagine just some like annoyingly weird guy being like, and if she doesn't like the Georgia Bulldogs, I'm not interested in her. We'd be like, oh, what a weirdo, right? It's like,
but she's so charming.
She's hilarious. She's got the energy,
so charismatic.
And like every picture of her with her exes, like is literally her ex is just like, ha, like her laugh and smile. So you know, she's just her whole life she's been just the party.
She's a bundle of energy, and also this woman's home, Pottery Barn. Restoration Hardware Deluxe.
Her porch is bigger than our home.
I know.
The porch is crazy. Every time I paused
for forever.
It's humongous.
And right on the water, too.
Right on the water.
When she had that date with the guy Avery, her second date with him.
He was intimidated. He walked in, he was like,
and he showed up.
He's like, I guess I'll be moving into your house.
No, when he showed up, I was like, oh, that's a move where you're like, oh, do you see this home? Yeah. How it's decorated, how it's right on the water. It's like, welcome to my
It looked like one of those baller vacation homes,
Yeah, it looked like something on Airbnb that I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, crazy. Who got this? And we get to spend 3 days here.
Right.
Magnificent.
It's an epic house.
And it just... And just to the way all of her outfits, she was just
she's wearing all the Georgia Bulldogs stuff into the game, like with the glitter and I mean, she's just.
But also, just like every outfit is just like flouncy and over the top
and like frizzles.
She's just has a zest for life.
She's an archetype of that, like Southern belle, like. You know, good time. You know what I mean? She's an absolute.
I love my wine.
Yeah, wine. Also, real quick, I wanted to make this statement. Whenever someone in their 60s says, I love a good glass of wine, that means I like a lot of wine. She's not, when she says, I want a man who likes a good glass of wine, she's not a sommelier. You know what I mean? She puts ice in her red wine. I saw that multiple times. So she's not someone that's like a fine palate for good wine. It's someone who drinks regularly and often, like I do, because there is not a shot from Netflix where I am not drinking. And I even noticed there was multiple pictures in the house, like in the background, I zoomed in on where she's drinking. So like every shot she is in a 24/7 wine. So
wine.
She is the epitome of wine o'clock. And so she's going, I don't want some guy that's going like, I don't drink. Like her and Nate wouldn't get along. It's very funny.
No. And she, she's just like, do you want to put some wine in that camel pack before we go hiking?
Yeah, 100%.
Water.
When she walked in with Avery, the first time. She's like, I'm thirsty. The first thing she said to him. It's very funny.
But right out the gate, I was like, okay, we're gonna have a character on our hands, because 100%. She immediately said, she goes, I need someone with no pot belly, good teeth, big lips, nice arms, good feet, good hygiene, silver fox, charismatic, laughs a lot, jokester, confident, likes a good glass of wine. I was like, okay, so we've got a laundry list that we need to cover.
Yes.
So I'm like, this is gonna maybe be a bit of a challenge for Suzanne. Everyone is gonna. She is the energy that no matter who she goes on a date with, they're going to fall in love with her.
Like, even if they're not attracted to her,
they're going to fall in love with her.
She'll be in love with, you know what I mean? Yeah,
she's just got that she's got charisma.
She's got that thing where you're like, most people don't have that thing. No. Which is just the like zest for life.
Yes. And so it's like everyone's
especially that age.
Yeah, 63. She's 63 years old.
I don't have that zest for life now. I never had that zest for life. I'm trying. You know what I mean?
I've never watched that even when I was a small child.
Even once. I was 5 years old. I never had that kind of zest for life.
But she's got it, man. Yeah, she's got it.
She's amazing.
But I right away was thinking, I was like, okay, so everyone's going to fall in love with Suzanne. Yeah, that's not going to be an issue. Mm-hmm. But she's going to have a laundry list of what she wants in a man. And then later we hear her daughter telling Logan that Suzanne loves a game.
Yeah.
She loves a good game, and she likes to play the game. So she likes to play the like, I'm not going to let him know that I want to go on a second date with him. Yeah. And so, you know, Logan. So by the way, family, we meet Logan, who Evan and I just briefly talked about, who is our dating coach expertise. And I'm thinking for Logan, maybe one of the challenges is going to be like, hey, Suzanne, it's not 20s dating anymore. So if you're wanting to find someone, you know, soon who's a partner for you, maybe games aren't what we should be doing at this moment. You know, it should be putting yourself out there and your feelings and like, you know, the vulnerability and all this. But so when I did want to bring this up, when Susan meets with Logan, she talks about how her husband passed away after 27 years.
Yeah.
And they had like a deep, beautiful love, and he wanted her to date after he had passed away. And Logan brought up a point where she said, Susan found something that many people never find, which is your true great love.
Right.
And so for her, maybe it's going to be about her finding someone different, like a companion or a travel partner.
Just have fun with. I think that's kind of what we felt about with Golden Bachelor.
With Joan a little bit.
Yeah, but we got Golden Bachelor. It was like this sense of like, you know, maybe just have fun. Maybe just hang out with Pascal. Maybe just have fun in life. Don't replace the feeling. You know, don't try to also find your second love of your life. That might be a little more challenging, a little more daunting.
And I think, of course, that can absolutely happen. Like you can find another great love. But I was just thinking about us when she was having this conversation with Suzanne. I was like, you know, if I were to lose you, you're like my true great love. Like if I were to go back into the dating scene again and I was looking for that same feeling, I don't know how receptive I could really be. Because it'd be impossible not to compare everybody to you and how I felt with you. And then that also includes, you know, however many years of history. And when you've been married then for 27 years, it's like so much years of history, instead of maybe approaching it, at least maybe out the gate, as someone who is going to be a different time, a different part of your life for a different time in your life, like a partner, like a companion, a travel partner, someone to have fun with. So I thought that was an interesting point. And I felt like, again, this is a moment where someone like a Logan could be so helpful on another like reality TV dating show like the Golden Bachelorette, where like she could have had a great conversations with Joan about like, here's how you're processing through this, and maybe try looking at it this way, instead of putting like all this pressure on yourself, right? And all the guilt and everything.
Yeah, agreed.
I thought that was interesting. So something that Logan encourages Suzanne to do is to, when you go on this first blind date, is to start a conversation out, not with just like a, hey, where are you from? How many kids do you have? Tell me about yourself. She's like, have something specific and interesting. And Logan uses the example. She's like, what about you say, or something like, I was listening to this podcast the other day.
and then you kind of talk about it for a second, and then they can jump in. That was kind of the conversation.
Yeah, and you bring up then something that you can mutually like get into an interesting conversation with, because she's like, sometimes you may not have chemistry. Like, I can't guarantee chemistry, but if you take the conversation in an interesting direction, you might find an interesting connection. Great dating tip.
Right. It's great.
Great dating tip. Also great life tip.
Yeah.
When you're meeting a new person in business, or wanting to make new friends somewhere.
Right.
Like, not just being like, you're at the park with your kids and there's someone sitting next to you and you're like, maybe this could be a new friend, instead of being like, so do you guys live around here? It's a little bit like, hey, my name's Jess. It's so crazy. I was listening to this podcast the other day and I heard about this, and all of a sudden you find this interesting connection that you all might have.
Who'd you vote for? Just that kind of stuff.
Honestly, get to the really important stuff.
But yeah, no, I feel like in her first date, so to your point, it was very funny though.
Yes. Okay. So her first date is with Frank.
Right.
Who he's 63, divorced attorney. He's like, everybody says I look like Steve Martin. I take offense to that. I'm like, why? Steve Martin's so handsome. And he's like, I like to be more of a Richard
I would say
Gere.
He's better looking than Steve Martin.
I think Steve Martin's very handsome.
But it was very funny, just to get right into the date. Like,
yes, please.
So she, this is so mom vibes. Well, it's just so like our parents / maybe I don't know, just to not take a creative approach to your recommendation, but to just do exactly your recommendation without thinking through like how this is actually going to work. Like, Logan was just kind of generally, here's an example of what I'm trying. And she just, so then Suzanne walks right into the date and just goes, I was listening to a podcast the other day about Matthew McConaughey. You like him? So he was talking about like his book. And I thought that was very interesting. And the guy's like, Frank's like, totally. So anyway, like, it was like, well, okay, we tried. Like, it was just very funny to be like thinking that it's like a magic bullet. That it just was like, if we just say podcast, then everyone's going to jump in. It's just like, no. The concept is like, you got to have something about it that kind of leans us into something.
When she was saying that.
Because the name of the Matthew McConaughey book's like Green Light or something.
Yeah.
It's just like, and he was talking about his book and how like there's green lights in our life. He's like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's just really funny.
When I was watching, I was like, were we going somewhere with this?
You could tell that halfway through, she's like, I didn't really think about like the podcast thing. It was very funny.
Also, I was obsessed too. And then when she went on her second date with Avery, she was like, so I was reading this book, Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah, she's like, if you change from podcast to book, that it'll really make it feel different.
It's just always Matthew McConaughey, whether it be podcast, book, interview, movie. Yeah. It's just like, have you heard of Matthew McConaughey?
Yeah, it's also really funny to be like, I was listening to this book by this super famous hot guy that I clearly have a crush on, who I couldn't date. It's like if I went up to, it's like if I was in a date and I was be like, I was reading a book by this famous Victoria's Secret model. It was very interesting. And the lady's like, okay. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just kind of like a weird thing. And it was like, it just made me laugh how like she thought that was the secret. Cause then even after the date, she's like talked to Logan on FaceTime. She's like, you wouldn't believe how well that whole podcast thing worked. And clearly that was like the thing that didn't work.
It actually, speaking of like it being, an attractive actor, I think it might have even gone in an interesting direction if she would have said, I was listening to this podcast, Matthew McConaughey, I have a massive crush on him.
Sure.
Who are your celeb crushes? Like, growing up, like, who did you love?
That's exactly what Logan was trying to...
It's at least a little bit of something where you're like...
There's green lights. What do you think about that?
Green lights, yellow lights, red lights.
Yeah,
stops.
in life. Sometimes you go, sometimes you don't. What do you think about that? Speak on it. It was very funny.
Also, by the way, I know I'm jumping ahead, but when she did have her second date with Avery,
I know what you're talking about.
And she brought up Matthew McConaughey, and he goes,
come on. And I'm like,
you mean all right?
Which was the most boomer shit in the world, because it's like saying Chipotle is Chipotle. It's like mispronouncing your own kids' names. It's like calling your kid your dog name. Like, it's all the stuff our parents do. But for him to go, I love Matthew McConaughey. Come on. And I was like,
he laughed so hard.
Is that like a new one he's done recently? Come on. That killed me. I wrote it down. I was really glad that you caught that, because I was just like, okay.
Oh, that made me laugh so hard. So Suzanne has her date with Frank.
Yeah.
Now, yes, does she start off with this kind of random podcast thing, sure, but she's so charming. She's so easy to talk to. The back and forth is immediate. Now, Frank was making me laugh because Frank was so giving. He immediately was like calling her baby.
Yeah.
And he was so just like,
he's a little horny, if I'm being honest with you.
For sure. No,
you know what I mean?
No, it was seeping off of him a bit.
Yeah, in the beginning, you're like, oh, this is cool. And by the end, it was like maybe 2 glasses of wine in. It was very like, it was starting to get a little horny.
He stood up, right? And she's like, oh, are you in pain? He's like, no, I'm just dancing. And he's like, I got a lot of energy, baby.
Yeah, kind of like, I'll blow your mind vibe. It was like, okay.
And then when she said, yeah, you're old as dirt. That was
very funny. She pummeled him,
so funny. And she's so good at pummeling the men.
Yes.
Like the second they have kind of a thing where
she's
it's like,
probably been beating him off with a stick for a long time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's like she's got these great
All
retorts.
the guys have the crush at the country club. Like she's definitely one of those.
Yes. But their date, it was like, you know, he had this energy, seemed like a nice enough guy, but like you said, there was kind of this energy that was a little intense.
We're not here for a long time. We're here for a good time. Yes. Kind of thing.
And I felt like it was a good first date for her to like get that energy and like get the reps in essentially. And she was like, I had so much fun. It was great. Yeah. He wanted a second date. And she seemed on the fence about it, but he took it upon himself because he didn't get her phone number. He forgot to get it. He took it upon himself to find her on Facebook.
Right, classic.
Again, such the older generation.
The number one news network for that generation.
It's Facebook, and he sends her a DM and is like, I've been stalking you and we have mutual friends. Yeah. And she's just like, I don't feel so keen about a second date with him. That you can tell she's the type where it's like, if you pursue her too hard, she'll be like,
I agree.
No.
Yeah, I'm not into that. I like little. She likes a little bit of the game.
She likes the game.
She likes the game.
She likes the game for sure.
But then at the same time, she's probably one of those that like if he doesn't pursue her, then she's like, what's wrong with him? You know what I mean? Well, it's like, what do you want? Kind of thing.
Some parts we heard her say like, well, it's you know, their job, which I thought was actually so interesting to then hear from the older generation of women who were like, well, they have to text me first. Sure. I'm not going to initiate. And I loved all the conversations with then the daughters and the granddaughters being like, hey, it's different now. Yeah. And you can tell them what you want. Like you want this date, you send a text message to them, and what worst case scenario, they are an ass back and you block them. Right. But you don't have to then just sit and wait and have to play the game. Like you want to go on a second date, let this person know that you want to go on a second date. You know, so I loved the back and forth between like the different generations.
Well, even Logan said that, remember, to Suzanne.
Yeah.
And the daughter being like, hey, you're dating kind of like 30 years ago.
Yeah.
With the games a little bit. Like it's not really that energy anymore. Like let's kind of just be, you know.
Totally.
We don't need to play games with everybody. Because even the daughter called her out. You're like, she's playing games. She's doing the like, I like you so much, and then pulling back, you know.
Yeah. But she then ends up going out on the second date, and it is with Avery. Avery is 56. He's a little younger.
Yeah.
Divorced, 3 kids, finance advisor. And, you know, he's got the lines right away, too. When she walks in, he's just like, have a seat, sweetheart. You know, next week is my birthday and here's my present. And she likes him right away because she says he's more mysterious than Frank is. He wasn't putting it all out there like Frank was. He was throwing the lines in, but he also kind of was a little more pulled back.
I don't think he's more mysterious. I think he kind of did that in the beginning. I actually would feel like Frank was more like keeping his personal life at bay and going like, hey, what's up, baby? Like, we should hook up. Avery's a little bit more wine o'clock energy, just like she is.
Yeah.
Where it's like, let's get the drinking going. Let's laugh. Let's have a good time. He just felt to me more like her speed.
Yes,
like
totally.
I see them married. You know what I mean? I go, oh yeah, Avery and Suzanne, they're together.
Yeah.
Where it was interesting. Side note about Frank that she brought up was that one of the big red flags was that he had a 16-year-old son.
Oh, I forgot to mention that.
And
yes.
And I didn't think about this, but she goes, that means he's into younger women.
Yes.
Because he has a 16-year-old son and he's like 60.
Sharp.
So that means like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so
she's like, no, I'm not interested
going,
in that.
That sounds to me like you were dating someone 20 years younger, had a kid with them, which means that I'm having to think about that. It's kind of a red flag for me. Versus Avery's like 3 kids, divorced, just, you know, similar boat. I don't know. Avery definitely has a lot more down to earth vibes.
Yeah, well, and again, like I said, Avery's 56 and she's 63, and he's down to be dating her versus, like, you know, we see Nate later, who's also 56. When he goes on the date with Anise, who's 62, he's like, she's an older woman.
Exactly.
Right? So it's like Avery doesn't seem like caught up in the age so much. And
Frank was like very well put together. Avery's a little more just kind of hanging out. Like he's like Frank looked like a little bit more like perfectly manicured and kind of like dating scene energy.
Frank gave Frank Sinatra.
Yeah. Like he gave like I date a lot.
Fly me to the moon.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm trying to be young and hook up with young, you know, versus Avery felt very much more just like, I'm here and we're doing it and I'm not looking for anything different than, you know, so totally. Naturally it made more sense. Even though she was so picky about a lot of things, I felt like she I don't know. I think it's one of those things where you can have a long list, but when you meet someone that connects with, like you kind of throw the list out. Yeah. Because she was like, I want Silver Fox. He wasn't a Silver Fox.
I also feel like she did have a long list, but I do have to say she did seem very open in her dates. She wasn't like, just because he's short, it's done. She mentioned the height, but she wasn't like too caught up in it. So I do think that even though she had a list, she was like willing to.
She's a personality first person, it seems like.
It seems like it. Okay, I have more to say about her and Avery, but we got to take another quick pause, family. So these later dater gentlemen, okay, a lot of them looking sharp, specifically Nate looking very sharp out on these dates for sure, okay? But if I may, guys, don't most nice pants suck? They're stiff, they're uncomfortable, hiking up in all the wrong places, right? Is that a prerequisite to looking fancy? Well, here's an early holiday gift from me to you. Those days are finally over. Public Rec's Daymaker pants are here to make sure you stay comfy and classy this season. These pants are unreal. They feel like your favorite sweats, but they look like tailored pants. I'm talking super stretchy with an elastic waistband, but looking sharp. Yes, it is truly a holiday miracle. I have gotten Evan Public Rec Daymaker pants. He loves them. They look very hot on him.
Thank you.
Very hot on him. And for a limited time, you can get 20% off your entire order with code MOMDAD20 at publicrec.com.
Yes, I'm obsessed with the Daymaker pants. They're amazing. They come in 10 unique colorways. I have them in black, navy, and khaki. And it's actually crazy how classy they look while feeling like sweatpants. I've been golfing in them, which is a secret hack because they look great on the golf course, but simultaneously they are so comfortable and easy to move in. And here's the thing. Usually when you order comfortable pants, you only get to pick from sizes like small to XL, etc. With Daymaker pants, you get to select the exact width and length you need. Huge.
Yes, and Public Rec doesn't just have the most comfortable pants ever made. They also have a huge selection of high quality everyday basics. You can revamp your entire wardrobe with their perfect fitting polos, shorts, and hoodies. I am telling you, go on their website, family, and check it out. This is a great place to shop for gifts. I will be getting Dad over here some more hot pants and their flannels that are so cute on him. So stop suffering in regular pants and give the gift of comfort this holiday season. For a limited time only, our listeners get 20% off when you use code MOMDAD20 at checkout. That's 20% off with code MOMDAD20 at publicrec.com. After you purchase, they'll ask where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them that we sent you. Say goodbye to pants that put up a fight, because when comfort meets style, you found Public Rec. Again, that's code MOMDAD20 at publicrec.com. Okay, back to Suzanne. I will keep wanting to say Susan. I feel like I've said Susan a bunch. I'm sorry if I have. Suzanne and Avery, okay? So on their first date, she's feeling the mysterious vibes. She's into him. They do have a really great chemistry. They have like a random connection between his brother and her late husband, which was cool with the medical thing. And it's like, you know, that was kind of like a cool moment for them. But she's vibing him. Yeah. She likes him, to the point that she's down to go on a second date with him. Yeah. He invites her. She's nervous because he is an Alabama fan and he is not a Georgia football fan. And she's very concerned about that. So when he asks her on a date, she's like, well, I don't know because it's a Saturday and Georgia's playing.
That was funny.
And he's like, I'm sure we can figure it out. And so what she does is she takes him to a Georgia game and makes him wear the stuff. Yeah. And he was a good sport about that.
100%.
Where he was like, I'm going to get absolutely like murked by my friends and my family for wearing.
He's kind of going like, oh yeah, I mean, it's just football. I mean, are we good? And she's like, it's not just football.
It's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle.
It's a religion.
Now, okay. Them in general, I totally can see them working and them just being like, you know, good companions. They definitely seem to have sexual chemistry.
Yep.
Now, 2 red flags for me about Avery on this date. Okay.
You mean at the end of the night?
Yeah, just hold on. Number 1, when he at one point called her sweetheart. And she's like, sweetie, she's like, it's always just a nickname with you men. And he's like, what about babe, babelicious? And then she's like, she kept saying, what's my name? And he kept adding more.
Do you think he forgot?
Yes.
But then he remembered it.
I think he gave himself
He was buying time. I felt
time.
the panic for him because I'll be honest with you. Sure,
well, you're bad.
I am bad at names, and I had the biggest panic in the world where I was like, because there's also this thing too of like if someone puts you on the spot, what's my name? That you're like, it's almost like, you know, I saw like one really funny thing where it's like someone goes around going like, name a man.
I was like, Jimmy Kimmel or something like that.
And then everyone's like, I can't name a man or a woman. You know what I mean? It's like when you're pressure.
Yeah, where they would name a state and you're like,
you're just like, oh, you know, it's something so like, there's something with the pressure that you like freeze. And I definitely agree with you where he like, because he said babelicious like 4 times.
Yes, he was buying himself time.
He's like, what is
He knew what she was saying and he kept playing this game. I can almost guarantee it.
And he knew if I mess this up, it's over.
Yes. There's no way that she'd be
down. And
down.
they were heading into the game. So imagine messing her name up, then having to go into a game like hell.
And babe, listen, I know that you can freeze on people's names, but you're on a second date with someone on TV.
You've been texting. I mean,
you've been texting. There's producers talking to you. Like, you don't forget. Like, that's wild.
And she smelled too. She's like,
no, she could smell it. Yeah, she's like, say it. Do you not know my name?
Epic.
So there was that.
Yeah.
And then, yes, on the drive back from the game, he essentially out of the clouds, talking about being attracted to her, says, you know what's something I'll never do?
All time.
And I don't care if you've done it, but I'll never do and have no interest in is a threesome.
He shouldn't have been driving.
I was thinking the same thing.
He was clearly drunk.
I was like, you guys.
Because that's drunk talk.
This is the dangerous. Production needs to step in and get them an Uber for the love of God.
Because that was drunk talk.
It felt like drunk talk.
It felt like the stupid stuff you say when you've had a little too much to drink and you get too comfy.
They've been drinking all day at this football game. Come now.
Dude, nothing says I want to do a threesome more than saying out of the clouds, you know what I hate the idea of? 2 naked women in my bed with me at my age, and I've never been able to do it my whole life, and I've had a fantasy my whole life, and my ex wouldn't let me do it. You know what I hate more than anything? Fulfilling my biggest fantasy in the world. Oh, it's awful.
No one has ever wanted a threesome more than Avery.
Avery's...
It's his
Google searches are just threesomes. That's his dream in life.
The fact that he was just like, yeah, it's crazy. You know, my friends would be like, everybody's like, oh
he's
yeah,
gross. God, my friends are gross.
Yeah, this sounds amazing. This threesome. He's like, I have no interest. I just want you and you alone. And I'm like, oh my God.
Because I like to worship at the foot of my woman. And I can't do that when there's 2. So I just want to let you know, if you're into this threesome thing, I'm not into it. I'm cutting it
And I'm
off.
not going to judge you. Because even through it, he's like, I don't know if you've had one before.
He put it on her. She's like,
what?
I'm not talking about this. It's very funny. It was very funny.
So Suzanne, prepare yourself. The threesome question is coming. But after that, they got back to the house. They did some smooching.
Yeah.
A little bit of
he was
smooches.
Definitely trying to kind of go like, where are we at?
Yeah.
Is this happening tonight?
Am I hanging out? Am I staying tonight? And I felt like,
you leave the box there. He's like, I can bring it in.
And I felt like that was the demise of him a little bit, because then we see, because I could have seen them working, but then we see in the preview for the upcoming episodes that she's like, it's moving too fast. I don't know about this. And then she's meeting another guy. So
he got sloppy.
I think he got too confident.
Probably drank too much.
Yep.
Let himself just kind of get too comfortable too quick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah, I agree. It's so funny that the threesome thing was so epically out of the clouds. It was
made me laugh so hard.
She's like, you know what? Yeah. Never mind. It's so crazy.
Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about Anise.
Yes.
Anise is 62 years old. She's been married 3 times and has now been single for 20 years.
So since she was 42, she's been single.
She's been single since she was 42 years old. And we hear from her, that she's extremely active. She's working out like crazy. She has a doctorate. She's extremely smart. She's extremely hardworking. She says that she's like, I don't know if I'd ever get to like these second and third dates because maybe I'm being too judgmental and da-da. Now, when she sat down with Logan, what I thought was then extremely interesting, because when I saw she'd been married 3 times and then had been single for 20 years, I was like, what's the story there? No judgment, but just like, what's the story? And then we end up finding out that her high school sweetheart, the love of her life, after they were married for 11 years, like tragically died in an accident at his job.
Yeah.
And at the time, her youngest, I think, was only 2 years old.
Yeah.
And they had talked about her, moving forward with like college, and her having that conversation about how after he passed, she then went through college and then master's and doctorate.
Yeah.
So that she's like, one day when I see him again,
that was gnarly.
That it was just like so emotional that he's going to be proud of me and I did it. And I said, I also raised our kids in a way that he would be proud of. And Anise is an incredible woman.
Yeah.
Like, also, like Logan was saying, you see her as just stunning.
Yeah.
A stunning woman.
A 62-year-old woman is wild.
I mean, absolutely beautiful. And on top of that, has accomplished so much, went through hell, and has been there for her kids and had this work and education and all of this. And so the vibe for sure with Anise, I know that she had said that she's like, I think maybe I can be too judgmental and things. As a viewer, I wasn't getting that from Anise.
No.
I wasn't getting that she's too judgmental. And Logan even later said, she's like, I think for Anise, it's just about finding the right person. And she hit me like that, where it's like, she seems like the person who is actually open to having different conversations and open to going on dates with people. But when you have, like we were talking about with Suzanne earlier, when you have the love of your life, and then for her to not only have the love of her life, but to lose the love of her life so early and then have these young kids, Anise has had to be the backbone of all backbones.
Well, she talked later about with Logan and her daughter about it. And, it was like one of those things where she's like, I want to be more just kind of open and fun loving all the time. But the reality is I've had to be this like rock for 30, 40, 50 years.
Everything she's gone through. And on top of that, being a Black woman in this society, I mean, like it's just so much.
Yep.
And I thought that conversation, I know I'm jumping ahead, but that conversation with her daughter, Dwayna, who I love their dynamic. They're so funny.
She's so like sarcastic and
Dwayna makes it
and it's very funny. They have a great dynamic.
But when they sat down towards the end of the 4th episode and they had that conversation where Dwayna was like, I'm surprised, Logan, that you think my mom needs to be like that you need to encourage her to take up space. Like that surprises me because I don't see her that way.
Yeah.
And then Anise being like, listen, honey, you guys have always seen me a certain way and I've changed, and you don't, because you guys have decided to see me a certain way, you haven't allowed me to show you that I am like that I have changed. And then when Dwayna, her daughter, said, hey, I honor your journey and respect you so much, and Anise started crying, I have a feeling that was the key. I think that shifted everything.
It's almost like
Anise.
She needed to be moved out of mom mode.
She needed to hear from the children who she loves so much that they see her journey and respect it and acknowledge that like she's changing and what she went through. Yeah. And it was almost like, I think now, and we see previews with her that it looks like there's maybe a guy that she meets, but I think that was like the key for her, that she has been and sacrificed so much and been so much for everyone in her family. It's like she needed that to be able to now kind of have this fresh start.
Yes, agreed entirely. Yeah. She's been in, go mode her whole life, and she's been taking care of everybody, and she's been getting, jobs and education and killing it and all this stuff, that it's kind of like she clearly hasn't kind of taken a breath and been like, all right, what about me? What about the things I want? Very professional.
Yeah.
Probably been in professional settings for a long time as well, which is not a place where you can just like express yourself freely. So she hits me as like a very, but she also seems like someone who's not like super tight.
No,
she just hits me as someone who's just kind of chill almost too. Like maybe she needs to meet someone who's got a little bit more pizzazz to kind of balance her out, because she seems just very relaxed, but also very open, but also like not, like she's so like even keeled. Yeah. Because, she has this date with George we're going to talk about. the way that she describes, I would have been like, yeah, this guy's nuts. And he was saying a bunch of like crazy shit that was so offensive. She just goes, a couple of the things he said were a bit off-putting, and I wasn't sure if I was reading them. Like she was so like calm about it.
Yeah,
and I was just kind of like,
just like, no, Mom, like you never, do not ever respond to a text from him ever again. I just
felt a little bit like some of the things he said were just a little strange, and I was like,
you're like, yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Can we talk about George?
Yes, I do want to say one thing quickly before we talk about George, though, because I thought it was a really important like dating nugget. So one of the things that Anise said has been an issue for her is that she doesn't want to bring up the fact that she has a doctorate because it intimidates men that she's dating, because she's got this high level of education. She's super, super smart. So it can be an intimidation to these men, right? And I love that Logan was like, I think you need to say it right out the gate. Because it's who you are.
Like set the tone, yeah.
And I was thinking about that when it comes to dating in general, right? Where it's like, this is who you are, and you should be so proud of who you are. And if you put that out right away, you're going to get away any type of person in your energy sphere who's going to have a problem with that. Because you don't want to be with someone who's going to have a problem with that in general. You don't want that energy around you. That's not for you. So you put that out right away. Yes, there might be situations where rejection does happen more frequently, but then you're going to find the right person who's going to be like, oh, hell yeah, you're an incredible woman.
Agreed.
So I love that Logan brought that up, because I felt like not just with Anise in this doctorate, but just dating in general, it's a great nugget to be like, when you're like, oh, I feel like people have this reaction when I say this about myself. It's like, no, put that shit out there right away.
Yeah.
Because you're going to get rid of all those people that you don't want.
Yes.
Agreed
entirely.
Okay. George.
Yes, please.
So this poor woman.
Well, I feel bad too, because
it's like this poor woman.
Of all the people who don't deserve George, it's her. You know what I mean?
It's like, here's this incredible woman.
It's like of all the people that like shouldn't be near a George, it's her, and it is so funny. Now, I will say, for the matchmakers, forgiveness, maybe.
Yeah.
He doesn't look, nor does his like voice or his personality match the things that he says.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like if you were to speak, he kind of seems almost nerdy.
Yes.
And kind of like a little goofy, like a little unassuming.
Nuclear security, like a very, very smart guy. So you're kind of like, and he's a little like soft spoken.
Yeah, like it was a shock. Like the way he was in that little interview thing, and then when he first started talking, I was like, oh, this guy kind of seems like jolly and sweet.
Yeah.
And then he starts with the comments.
Well, not just that though. I do have to say, the second she walked in, his eyes, it was like, auga, like wowie zowie, like the level of which he was checking her out, and his eyes just got just massive, and he was like, oh, and then immediately when that happened, I'm like, oh, the fact that he like couldn't contain that look while with a camera in his face. And he right away, even in ITMs, he goes, this is my type of eye candy. And I'm like, oh, no, okay. Your type of eye candy. And then first thing that is said, besides like the traffic and you're in Atlanta and you're in da-da-da-da-da. She's like, I have 3 children. And he says, all with the same dad?
Whoa.
I almost fell out of my chair. And she looks at him and she's like, excuse me? Just first question.
Well, then he follows it up with,
so fast.
Well, I've been with women before that have this like issue, but sometimes they have a good excuse. And so he's basically saying like, justify yourself.
And she's I
like,
love
you mean a reason?
Yeah, I love how she's the best. She goes, do you mean an excuse or a reason?
Yeah, basically saying like, that's not okay. So you better have a good alibi for this. Can I just go down the list of the things he said? Can I just hit him? So same daddy. He goes, during the order.
Oh.
And he goes, I always just look for the pig on the menu because that's me. So it's like he orders pork because like he's a pig, basically saying like, I'm a dirty dog, I guess. I don't know what it was something to that effect. He says, oh, then he like shamed her.
Yes,
with the
about
butter rolls.
The bread.
The guy's like, we have amazing butter rolls. And she's like, and he goes, no.
You'll thank me. And he's like,
you'll thank me later. Like, full blown, like,
you guys, this is
body shamer.
Hey, you guys, this is before they've even officially ordered.
Yeah.
So this is within 5 minutes.
5 insane
He's like,
comments.
Don't let her get the rolls. She'll thank me later.
Basically putting her on a diet, or like a hey, I'm not letting you. Then he goes, have you ever had work done before?
Oh, out of the clouds. Ever had work done?
He goes, I live in Chattanooga, but I fuck around in Atlanta.
And he's like, I mean
dating, which is, he was trying to be funny, basically saying, yeah, put a blonde wig on.
Oh my gosh. He's also flossing at the table.
She
goes to the bathroom. He checks out her ass like,
and
no
then when
tomorrow.
She comes back, he tells her. He goes, I like watching you get up.
As he's flossing at the table.
This is like a movie character. Do you know what this feels like? A dating prank show.
It does feel like a dating.
Where it's like,
it didn't feel real.
It felt like okay, here we're gonna feed it. Like there's a what's that prank show?
Impractical Jokers or
where
something
he has
like
a
that.
thing and they're like, all right, say don't eat those rolls. I'm helping you out. Okay, and he's going, okay, here we go. Do it. Like that's what it felt like. Humiliatingly crazy things to say that would, like, if I had it in my ears and I had to say it, I'd be like, oh my God. Okay.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Your whole body would be like,
But he was just saying it like, this is my normal day.
I have more to say about him. We have to take another quick pause. But dude, I just, to me, the pinnacle made me just like keel over was all the things he was saying. I could not even believe it. But then when he took out that flosser at the table, like we might make out in a few minutes. So I couldn't even believe it. Okay, family. Here's the thing. You looking to go on a nice date where you take a gorgeous stroll for a few miles around a lake, or a date in an amusement park from opening till closing fireworks? Sounds dreamy, right? But you will be on your feet all day during a date like that. So may I suggest making that date 100 times better by making sure your feet feel great all day with the Vionic Walk Max sneakers. For him, for her, for everyone. You all know that they are my absolute obsession. I have been a walking girly as of late, and TBH, my feet were starting to be bugging by the end of the day until I got my first pair of Vionic Walk Max sneakers. I will say it a million times, family, because it will always amaze me. The moment I put these shoes on my feet, I felt the difference. I felt the science, truly, because this is science-led design informed by biomechanics to create the ultimate walking shoe. And it really is. It's the ultimate. Evan and I had a date this last weekend, and we walked for maybe from about like 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Yeah. We were on our feet all day. Both of us were rocking our Vionic Walk Max sneakers, and both of our feet felt great the entire day. And being almost middle-aged, that's saying something. But it's true. It's true.
The comfort of these shoes is truly unparalleled. Vionic's exclusive VioMotion technology is what sets them apart. This exclusive podiatrist design technology features unmatched underfoot contours, providing stability and support through every single stride. They began by revolutionizing medical orthotics, and today they continue to use that science to engineer shoes that leave you feeling energized and confident all day.
And on top of it, they're so cute. Okay, I have them in cream tangerine tango color and in black. I wear them everywhere, on errands, walks, dancing through life, all of it. I wear them constantly. Okay, so check out their website, because not only are the Walk Max sneakers amazing, they also have so many other stylish shoe options that are peak comfort, okay? And you can use code MOMDAD at checkout for 15% off your entire order at www.vionicshoes.com. When you log into your account, this is one-time use only. Again, that's code MOMDAD at checkout for 15% off your entire order at www.vionicshoes.com. Vionic Shoes, wearable well-being for your feet. Okay, back to poor Anise and George. So the date's going as terribly as possible. My heart is hurting for Anise, and thank goodness she comes back and she's like, "Well, my Uber has arrived."
She called the Uber in the bathroom.
She's like,
the food was fully on the plate.
It's like, "My Uber has arrived," and he's like, "Baby, the night is still young."
I was half expecting him to be like, "Cool, so split the check." You know what I mean? Like I was kind of ready for that almost.
They're like, "This is Netflix. You guys don't have to pay for the food." He's like, "Yeah, but like, you know, maybe I can pocket."
Do I get credits? Crazy. And I couldn't tell in the beginning if it was like, is this Golden Fedora energy? Is this like guy who's like did courses?
Yes.
That like, you gotta shame women. They love it. You know what I mean? Is there some sort of like, but then I was like, it got too weird, too long. Like the first comment I thought, maybe he read up with some guy online that you pay.
Coach.
Yeah. And he like, you gotta be an asshole.
Yeah.
But then it kept going. And I was like, okay, this is just
relentless.
Bad vibe.
And all I could think about the entire time was, and then when she left, he did like the eyes at her again.
Yeah.
And like then almost looked into the camera.
Yeah, he was almost like playing like a...
And I'm like, imagine the cameras aren't there. You know what I'm saying? Like this man's on television. There are lights, there are cameras, and with lights and cameras, he's saying this shit.
I thought about that as well. I'm like, usually you're on your best behavior when you're going to be projected to millions of people.
Unbelievable.
But he's just like, nope.
Crazy.
I'm in my villain era.
I know, totally. Anise, she talks with Dwayne, like you said, about it, and she's just like, well, I don't think so. And it's like, yeah, I sure hope not. So I felt for her for that to be the first date right out the gate. It's like, you got to be kidding me. But then she has her second date with Nate, who's another one of our big players.
Yes.
Which let's talk about that when we talk about Nate. Okay. Because I feel like that is I have some things to say then that include Nate in there. But then Anise goes on a third date with Bill. They have the conversation. So Bill's 55, divorced twice, tech startup CEO. He's British. They have the conversation before Anise and Dwayne do about the fact that he is white and she's never dated a white guy before. And they're talking about the fact that Anise was growing up during actual segregation.
In the South.
In this country, yes. And so that was like a really important, interesting conversation that they were having back and forth. And then her and Bill end up going on this date. And I have to say, at first, I was all in with Bill. When he first, I liked his vibe right out the gate. I liked that he's like, I have a really serious question for you. What are your thoughts on white after Labor Day? And I'm like, oh, he's fun.
Yep.
But then when they started to get into the conversation where she was like, well, how do you feel about dating a black woman? And he said that he only dates black women and that, his children are biracial. And they're having this conversation and she's being super open with him and vulnerable. And then he in ITMs was saying, he's like, it's a red flag for me that she hasn't dated interracially. And I'm like, as a white man, to say it's a red flag that she hasn't, I was like, no.
He was giving weird vibes too in general.
Yeah.
Like horny weird vibes as well.
Yeah.
He, like you said in the beginning,
I was like, is this the guy?
He's British. He's like charming. He's got like a thing to him. He's very confident. I'm like, oh, this could be a interesting dynamic here. The more he talked, the more he made me feel uncomfortable.
Yes.
And he just said some stuff that was weird. It all got kind of
yuck, and but like I said too, for him, like as a white man, to in the ITMs be like, it's a red flag that she hasn't dated interracially. It's like, what, sir? Like, you are not the person to be having this conversation when we're seeing Anise having conversations about like being a black woman, growing up during segregation. It's like you saying, sir, as a white man, this is a red flag. It's like, no. So then I was like off. And I know she walked away and she liked him.
Sure.
And, she was talking then with her daughter about like, the whole conversation about, should I text him? And she then told Logan that she had really liked him. He said in ITMs and that it wasn't she wasn't it for him. And I'm sad for her because you could tell that she did like him, but I was happy for her that it didn't end up working out because
Agreed.
I think Bill was a no-go.
I felt bad for Anise though in these episodes because I was kind of like, in my opinion, everyone dating kind of needed notes. Does that make sense? Like,
yes.
Like everyone's like, okay, Suzanne, like, we can chill out with some of this.
Pam,
Pam, like, let's calm down with some of the conspiracy theories from Facebook. Nate, we're going to get into, it's like, Nate, loosen up a bit. You're a little like, whatever. She was maybe the only one I felt where it was like, you kind of figured it out. You're kind of like an amazingly solid person, amazing mom, professionally killing it. There was really no notes for me where I was like, you got some red flags you got to work on. And then I felt like she had the worst dates. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was a little bit like I felt bad for her. But one thing I will say to wrap her up was like, she didn't let it crush her spirit.
No.
Where like I would have been more crushed. I would have been like, those
100%.
are like, these are weird dates. I feel weird. The guys are weird. I'm disheartened by this process. And this is why I don't date in the first place kind of thing.
Yeah.
But she didn't. She goes, you know what? It doesn't, like she kind of even was just like telling her daughter, like, doesn't mean we don't have hope. You know what I mean? She kind of like was leaning into the fact that like we can make this happen somewhere out there.
And we see in a preview again, like it looks like she's meeting somebody that she's getting caught up with.
Yeah.
So I have really high hopes that if anyone walks away with someone, that it's going to be Anise.
Yeah.
I want it in my spirit. I'm
She's
like,
a diamond in the rough kind of vibe.
She really is. And so it's like, okay, I think I feel good about this next series of episodes we're going to see. And I really hope that she finds someone. Loved her. Okay, let's talk about Nate, who Anise did have a date with.
Yeah.
But Nate is one of our other big players. Nate is 56. He is divorced. He has 2 daughters, and he is the clean king. His home is absolutely spotless. I have never seen a closet like this. It's like I'm so envious. He was
serving your dad.
He's very much serving my dad.
Because your dad is similar vibes. Like
he has a lot of
like
similarities with my dad.
Immaculate house, decorated beautifully. A little on the grumpy side, a little on the like, I'm not changing for anyone vibe, a little on the like, I'll have to get a bigger house because I don't want you making a mess in my side of things.
Also, like pristinely dressed, right? Like just when he's getting ready, everything's perfect. And like he said, it's like you want to put it on to present yourself,
he's
like
clipping the lawn with scissors energy, which, is kind of giving like he even said, I have a perfectly peaceful life and I don't want anyone coming in like causing a bunch of ruckus.
Well, the backstory though with Nate, and to me the love story I want so bad,
which we see a preview of when they later on say like, can we talk about this?
So his first child he had been seeing a woman named Jackie, and she ended up getting pregnant. We end up finding out that she was like said like I was on birth control, but she wasn't. And then she got pregnant. She was like, I will have a baby this year. And they have they have a child together. Yeah. This is now his very best friend. And this Jackie is the one who during this series is the one walking through it with him.
She's the kid. She's the one that's like coaching him, helping him, talking with him about it.
She's with him after every date, going through. And Evan, their chemistry is incredible. It's like watching this, I was like screaming at the television. I'm like, marry each other. Yeah. It was so one of those things where it's like, it's right in front of you, you guys. Like, I get that people can be best friends, but they just feel like you see a different side of him when he's with her, where he's super loose and goofy and having fun.
They roast each other.
When she's like, has her water bottle. He's like, you take that trash away. And she's like, God, you're a nightmare. And they're just, and then her being able to, she like knows him in and out, but then also like care about him enough to want him to be happy and to encourage. And also then, when she's hearing about the dates, she's not like talking shit about the ladies.
No.
She's like, you need to get your shit together.
She wants him to find love.
And I want him and Jackie.
I know. But it's interesting that he got married after they had a kid for 16 years.
Well, so we end up then finding...
Whoa, there was a thing before that too, which was intense.
That's the thing. So we end up finding out more about Nate when he sits with Logan, and then you see, that's why I love these Logan sit downs, is you get to actually then hear more about like what's really going on. And he said, the first round with Jackie, there was a trust thing because of the birth control. So there was that. So that trust was broken there. And then the second person that he was with, he got engaged to, and they were cheating on him.
She got pregnant.
While
they were engaged. That'll mess your brain up.
And then he said, I married the love of my life. We were together for 16 years, and there was,
he alluded to trust issues there too.
Infidelity. So Logan's like,
triple betrayal.
You got betrayal going on, and he's like, the only person I really trust is my grandma. But it's interesting then to hear about Nate, because Nate does though seem like somebody, when you hear about all of those stories, that he doesn't give up on someone he cares about. So it's like there are trust issues, but then he also seems like
the fact that he's been with Jackie as a best friend for however long.
Yeah. And then that he wasn't sitting there talking about this person that he got divorced with, who there was like trust issues with. He wasn't like talking shit about them. He seems like somebody who, once he works through his trust issues, he's a very loving, loyal person, but potentially because of all the hurt he's gone through, because of everything that he's had to deal with.
And the military injury.
That seemed
to really rock his
confidence. Yep.
So he's kind of working. It seems like he spent a lot of time rebuilding himself, both physically and mentally, and he's in a good place, but it does feel like there's a lot of damage there that he's kind of like going in, like he's working through. There's like a lot of filters that he's
right. And
with.
Because of all these trust issues that he has, it makes sense that like he wants to have everything else in his life in control. So it's like, I need to have it perfectly clean. Everything needs to be perfect. Everything needs perfect here, perfect here, perfect here.
No chaos.
Because I've struggled and I've gotten hurt with all these trust things.
Agreed.
So I think that's going to be then his big journey.
It's like he's controlled his life because of the things he couldn't control in the past. So the house is immaculate. Right. His life's perfectly. He looks amazing. Everything's put together because in the past, all the stuff was out of control.
And before his dates, Logan gave him some amazing advice where she was like, hey, listen, when you're with somebody, you don't need to be this perfect person because people connect with imperfection.
She's like, vulnerability like breeds connection.
Yeah. It's like when someone sees someone who's perfectly together, they can't relate. And so when you're willing to be vulnerable and show imperfection, as we all have, that's then where like true connection can happen. Yeah. And so she encourages him to try to be vulnerable, at least have one moment during all of these dates where he is vulnerable,
I felt bad for him too. The first 2 dates, they're like, I just love to jog.
I know.
He's like,
I know.
So speaking of vulnerability,
yeah, I know,
you know what I mean? Like, I guess I'm forcing myself into this one.
But he's another one too, where it's like when we first like saw him, that I'm like, oh, I think it's going to be maybe tough with Nate. But he really was very open and willing to take Logan's advice. Like he really did do it. And then he was also willing to hear when Jackie was like, hey, well, what's going on? And giving him a hard time.
Surprisingly charming.
Very charming.
You know what I mean? Like in the dates, he didn't go like, well, are you clean? We were kind of suspecting a little bit like, I'm going to quiz you. Mm-hmm. But he didn't. And he was very charming, very complimentary, very sweet, very gentlemanly. He was bringing the flowers each time. Like, I will say, like, good dater.
Great dater. I know there's going to be the trust issues, but I also think the other thing that's going to be potentially Nate's tricky downfall situation is that I think the physical is going to be the thing, because we saw him, and we'll get more into more details, but we saw him go on a couple of dates, and with the first two women, where maybe he didn't have as much of a physical connection, he was like noting all of their red flags. And on his third date, when there was he would be considered a big red flag because he thought she was hot stuff, he was like, it's not really a big deal.
Like, sure, the biggest red flag out of all three of the women for him, not like a bad thing, just more like his personal issues. He's like, we can work around that.
But it feels like maybe his picker in that way is going to be like, maybe you're going to miss really good connections elsewhere because you're going to be focused on the age, the physicality, all of this.
He's a little caught in that world.
And you might miss, your great love because you're going to choose someone who might actually be the best fit for you, but
he kind of reminds me of a friend of ours.
But okay, let's get into Nate's specific dates. But first, we're going to take one more quick pause, family, one more quick pause. So listen, the holidays are quickly approaching. And if you have kids, you're getting their Christmas lists right now. But let's be honest, sometimes you see something on that list that gives you a pause. Like a smartphone, for example. It seems like kids are asking for these at a younger and younger age these days. I know a lot of kids in Ember's class already have them. And like many parents, you probably have concerns about handing them the same kind of smartphone you use, and with good reason. For Evan and myself personally, there are many reasons why we aren't comfortable giving our daughter that particular type of smartphone. But for emergencies or when she's at rehearsal or at a friend's house, we want her to be able to reach us. So, we were in this pickle. So let me tell you about what saved us and tell you about Gab's holiday sale. Okay, Gab is the leader in safe phones and watches for kids, teens, and tweens with no social media apps, no internet browser, and GPS tracking. Gab devices were built from the ground up specifically for kids and teens and are the way to keep your kids safely connected. Gab was a game changer for our family, okay? Like I said, we weren't sure what we wanted to do because we wanted to protect our kiddo, but we also wanted her to have access to reach us if we were apart, and Gab really saved the day for us, truly.
Yeah, what we love about Gab too is there are so many amazing features, but as a parent, you can set it up with exactly what you are comfortable with. Like for us, we have it set up where Ember can just call or text our family's numbers. Kids get unlimited talk and text with Gab Messenger, the first messaging and video calling app designed with kids' safety as the top priority. Gab Messenger blocks high-risk messages and content from ever reaching your child's phone. This app is exclusive to Gab phones, and it has a parent companion app for easy controls and to keep parents informed.
Yeah, other quote-unquote safe device options or parental controls let you know what's already been accessed, but Gab's phones and watches are built with smart filtration that proactively blocks harmful content before it ever reaches your kid. And Gab phones and watches are still tech kids actually want, like the Gab Music app, which lets kids stream clean music, or for the older kids, there's the Gab Phone 4 Pro with hundreds of vetted third-party apps that can only be installed at parents' discretion. Family, I truly cannot recommend Gab enough. It is a must-have this year for real. And do it now, because right now, Gab is offering huge discounts on their phones and watches. The best part, there's no contract required, okay? So just go to gab.com/momdad to get started. That's Gab, GABB.com/momdad, gab.com/momdad. Terms and conditions apply. Okay, so back to Nate. Now, Nate did say, we hear at one point when he's talking to his ex, Jackie, that he's interested in being with someone who has not had kids. So no kids.
Yeah.
So which is important when we get back later to his final date. But his first date is with Latricia, and Latricia has never been married, doesn't have kids. They seem to want a lot of similar things, and she was in the Army as well, so they have that connection. She's very beautiful. She's got this kind of calm, sexy energy. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh, this is going well.
Right.
Like she was doing the checklist with him where she was like, yes, yes, yes. And he seemed to be vibing her. But then at one point, he's like, do you pray? And she's like, oh my gosh, yes, I absolutely pray. I'm a woman of God. I want a man of God. You're a check mark. You're a check mark. He prays, and the rest of the date goes down. He then later is like, the problem for me is that I am spiritual, but I'm not religious. And I thought that was so funny, because maybe it's just how we were raised, but I'm like, if I were to be on a date with a guy and before we eat, he asks if I pray, and then he prays for the meal,
I'm thinking this guy's
I'm assuming he's a super Christian.
Like first date?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I was like, so for him to look at her and be like, she liked that I did that and said she wants a man of God. We didn't hear her really get into details about like what that looks like for her. And he's like, oh, she's too Christian for me. And I'm like, you're the one who initiated
if anything, she leaned into what you were doing.
You initiated a prayer on a date. I feel like that
Jesus,
seems...
thank you for saving my soul from hell. And then she's like, oh, beautiful. And he's like, what's beautiful? I don't believe in that shit. It's like a little bit like, what? You know what I mean? Like he didn't even say, he was like, thank God for this food. Like it was a little bit like it was like a very Christian prayer too. And then later on he's like, yeah, I believe in God and Jesus and all that stuff, but I don't go to church on Sunday.
Yeah, he goes, I'm a CNE Christian, Christmas, New Year's, and Easter.
Yeah, so it was like very weird to be like, oh yeah, I pray before every meal, which is like very dedicated. But then at the same time to be like, I'm very don't care about it. It was and
I get like the
so
tradition
confusing.
of praying, like saying grace before a meal, but doing it on a date is like a big choice. And to ask her, do you pray? And then
she goes, yes. And he goes, ooh, weird. Right.
I was like, wait, what?
Okay. I have a viewpoint on them.
Yeah, okay.
I think they're the same person.
Yeah, they might have been a little too similar.
So, because she's like, box checked. And then at the end of him, he goes, well, I got to find someone that checks all my boxes. Mm-hmm. So it almost seemed like she did to him what he was doing to her. And there's this kind of like, they were both very well put together, very like educated, very successful army. Like it was almost like the same person.
Yeah.
And I think that maybe because of that, he felt, I don't know, but interesting. Because once we get to this next date, in my brain, I go even more like your dad, where I think,
like my dad, yes.
Where I think if your dad was single right now, he would say a lot of the same things. I want someone this, I want someone put together, I don't want any chaos, But I think your dad, low key, the way he finds value is like helping people and like taking care of people and kind of fixing problems. And kind of almost likes a little chaos because he likes to kind of know that he can be fixing it. And I feel like he's kind of the same. He kind of acts like he wants it all together, but he actually wants someone that he can kind of come in and help. You know what I'm saying? Like it was a little bit like maybe this woman is too put together. Maybe she got her shit too together. I need someone with a little bit more chaos.
With Anise,
exactly.
Yeah.
And Anise comes in beautiful, perfectly put together, and he's like, well, maybe a little too old. Maybe the other one's a little too religious. Like he's finding these random things
that are like the red flags to him. No,
when in reality, he just wants someone a little younger, a little more hot in his mind, and I can handle the chaos. You know what I'm saying?
No, you're right. I don't know. Well, the one thing he did do at the end of the Latricia date, which shocked and awed me because it seems so not like him, is he asked for a selfie and she was like, what?
Which is a crazy, very boomer energy to be just like, let's take a picture together. You know what I mean? It's very like, you see the Facebook posts of like our parents' friends and it's just like, met Jerry tonight at the bar. Amazing Bloody Marys. And you're like, you took a selfie with the bartender? You know what I mean? Like, you'll see that shit. And you'll be like, had a great time on the fishing trip. Here is the guy who helped us fish for the day. Kevin was a great assistance. The fish was delicious. And you're like, who's this for?
It just made me laugh that he did it because...
And she was like...
It just made me laugh that he did it because selfie? I was like... Nate, you do know that this is going to be a TV show, right? Like, you're going to have photo evidence.
And you don't like this girl. Like, you literally walk out after the selfie and go, yeah, it's not right for me. It's like, what was the fucking point of that? It was just so someone who doesn't understand technology. And it's just like, I can take pictures of my phone.
Apparently, like, it's the thing he does because Logan later was like...
He got out selfied.
Yeah, he got out selfied. So he loves a selfie at the end of the date.
Who are these people? What's the selfie shit? It's so bizarre to me.
I think it's very cute.
It's very cute, but it makes me laugh very hard. To be like, I'm going to take a bunch of selfies with people that I may or may not ever talk to again.
I mean, it is memories, I guess.
That's true, I guess.
You keep scrapping.
Very funny.
Okay.
It'd be funny if he posted, like he took the picture.
And he goes, didn't work out.
Great date. Not quite what I'm looking for, but great time. Tagged her.
Thank you, Latricia.
Hope you find what you're looking for out there. You're a little too religious for me. Anyway, have fun at church. Tags a church. Yeah, I don't know. It's just very funny.
Okay, so the next date, they end up setting up Anise and Nate together, which I was excited about. Yeah. Now, this was an example of what we were talking about earlier, where it's like, I think one of the things for him is going to be age, whatever, because he finds out the gate that Anise is 62 and he's like shut off. He was like, I've never dated an older woman. He's not down. It also made me laugh because it's like she's a couple years older than him.
Yeah, when you're in your 50s and 60s, if someone's like 3 years older than you, it's like it's the same.
She also fucking looks 40. You know what I mean? She looks 25 years younger.
Right.
And but it was stuck in his brain.
In his head.
And then I felt like, you know, when he does open up about the fact that there's certain activities because of his injuries that it doesn't end up working out with women. And she then kind of said, she's like, so you're going to be the one to make that call? Like, what about if they just want to do it by themselves and you guys don't have to do it together? And they ended up, it was crazy because at the start, he was like shut down because of her age. And it was a little tight at first. But then throughout the date, I felt like they had a really good chemistry.
Yeah.
And then he was starting to be flirty with her, talking about how beautiful she was. They were being playful. And I'm like, I think this actually might be like going really well. Like he really respects her doctorate, thinks she's beautiful. She thought he was very handsome and very charming. But then she finds out that he's a homebody and she doesn't want to be with a homebody. And it was interesting because by the time the end of the date happened, he, in his ITMs and with Logan, was like, she's too old. And she was like, he's a homebody. Yeah. And I did find it to be interesting because I felt like both of them got stuck on something that wasn't that big of a deal.
Right.
And let it infiltrate a potential second date. Mm-hmm. Because I do think they actually could have potential together.
Oh, big time.
But, you know, it's one of those things where it's like, I guess sometimes if like there's that thing missing, then you come up with things. But I did feel like they had a really good chemistry. And I feel like they might both have gotten stuck on, for her, the homebody, for him, the age. And I kind of would love to see them go on a second date.
Yeah, I think they just have to get over some of that stuff. But it was like, especially for him, I think he...
Yeah, I get more for her with the homebody where she's like, I'm super active. I want to be with someone who's not that way.
But I also think that probably made him feel insecure.
Yeah.
I think he felt triggered by that a little bit, being like, that's a big sensitivity of mine. She's going, that's a big deal for me.
Yeah.
He probably then kind of, back out before I can hurt
myself. I also think he was throwing out certain things to like turn her, like revealing certain things to turn her off a little bit because he was like, he had chemistry with her, but was also like, she's too old for me. But I think he really got stuck on that where I was like, you should be giving this woman a chance.
Yeah.
Like, and I think the age is just something that's playing in your brain. Because then on the flip side, he ends up having his final date.
Yeah.
It is with Lisa, who is 56, divorced, 2 kids, esthetician. Lisa's 56. Lisa, again, looks maybe like my age.
Yeah.
She looks extremely young. Mm-hmm. And when she walked out and he saw her immediately in that little outfit too, he was like, he immediately said, I hope that's who's coming up.
Right.
He had the hots for her right out the gate. And she had absolutely a very like lovely, sweet energy. Yes. She's beautiful. She's sweet. She was very warm, and very like nurturing energy. Mm-hmm. But they start talking about kids.
So funny.
He says, my daughter ended up losing scholarship in college, wanted to come move back. We said no because she's too old. She needs to figure it out herself. He finds out that Lisa has 2 kids who are in their 30s who still live with her.
Which, on paper, would be the biggest deal breaker of all the women he's met. Not even close.
For him.
Because he's going, I don't even want kids, let alone 30-year-olds that live with us.
Yes, he clearly has a very strong opinion about like the fact that he was like, hey, our daughter, she's not staying. She needs to figure it out. I don't want to date anybody with kids. And now this woman is like, I have 30-year-olds who still live with me. And so you're going,
he's like, but you're super hot to me, so I'm sure we can figure this all out.
That was in the thing. So then in ITMs, he goes, I would say normally it would be like a red flag for me, but I can tell that she does want them to move out. So to me, it's maybe just a yellow flag. And you're like, funny. Nate, let's be real here.
He just became such a dude there.
Yeah, it's like, Nate, let's be real here. If it wasn't Lisa, you'd be running out the door.
You'd be like, actually, my Uber just pulled up.
You'd be running 100%. Out the door. But then they connect even more because as they're about to leave, Lisa's like, I brought my phone so we can do a selfie.
He's like, what? He's like, do you know about Facebook as well? It was very funny.
That was actually very cute.
She selfied the selfie. And he's like, I didn't know.
It was like his mind exploded.
It was like we find out that there's serendipity in the world. They both want to do selfies together.
Genuinely. That's kind of what it felt like. So he really likes her, but then he tells Logan she wants to go on a second date, but he doesn't want to ask her on a second date because he wants to date everyone first and then follow through. And Logan was like, I don't want him to do that, but at the same time, I do respect that he's trying to date differently. Mm-hmm. But I didn't know how I felt about that. I was a little bit like, you want to see everybody first? Like, what about if you've got a connection?
He's giving a little bit of Love is Blind mixed with The Bachelor, where he's like, I want to see all my options before I make a decision. This is my show. I'm one of the leads. It was a little bit of that.
And he said, like, I don't want to lead her on. But I'm like, yeah, but he goes, if it's communicated that you're still dating people, you're not leading somebody on.
But I also understand the other side.
Sure.
Where he's going like, okay, that's like 2 that I wasn't that interested in. 1 that I think is hot, but like lifestyle wise, definitely not my favorite, but like maybe I could see past it. He's going, there hasn't been like a clear winner for me yet. So like, we're trending.
Yes.
He's like, we're trending in a good direction. So if I could find the last one without the kids, we'll be good. You know what I mean? Like you could see him kind of feeling a little bit like,
Yeah.
But
well, we'll see with Lisa and Nate and who he continues to meet. Next we have Pam.
Love her.
God.
Character.
I mean, what a character. I am.
You know how some people are
obsessed with Pam.
Aunts?
Yes.
Or uncles? You meet a guy and you're like, that guy's an uncle.
Yeah. She's an aunt.
Somehow he's an uncle.
Yeah.
She's an aunt.
Yeah, she's big.
She lives out in the woods. She reminds me a lot of my aunt.
Yeah, she is very much giving her
70s hippie vibes, rock star vibes, fun loving 70s vibes. Lives out in the woods by herself. Rural. Like she just got internet. Like that's my aunt. You know what I mean?
Her backstory's wild.
Wild. Like, she knew the Beatles. Like hung out with them.
John Lennon.
Her first husband.
Yes.
Was in
Humble Pie.
I looked him up.
Yeah.
He's like a legitimate dude.
Well, he's like a gold record. She got his gold record.
And he died in the most rock star crazy movie way ever.
Like 70s movie way I've ever heard.
He fell asleep with a cigarette in his mouth and burned the house down, and he was in it. Like, that's not real. You read that and you go, okay, cool. What movie is this? So like a British rock star dies smoking a cigarette and he burns the house down. I mean, it's like insane. Crazy.
And then when you saw the photos of her where she's like this little model and she ran off with him.
And her family disowned her because she ran off with a rock star, probably religious family. You know what I mean? Like, so she's lived a crazy life.
And then her second husband, who they called Bubba, I think, she's like, oh, we had like a great love and they worked together for a really long time. And then he ended up passing away. And she has the wildest history. She's lived a million lives already.
She's got this quirky house with all sorts of random stuff. She was a what is it?
Flight attendant.
So
for private plane.
So she's traveled the world. You know what I mean? So she's lived an amazing kind of first 3 quarters.
Yes.
And then, which brings us to what Logan was saying, which is like, don't live in the past. Like, don't make your date. Don't talk about the past too much because you've had an epic one.
Yes.
So it's easy to get kind of caught in the like, let's talk about my relationships. Let's talk about my Beatles. Let's talk about my life. Let's talk about my fun things that I've always done. But it's a little bit like you're not looking to the beauty of the future.
Well, and I loved how then Logan was like, her house, because her house is like a museum.
It's like a shrine to the past.
Yeah, and she was like, her house feels haunted by the ghosts of what were. And what I love that Logan said is that she said, Pam has kind of like gone in this like cave, and she is a flower that needs to have like the light of the sun hitting her, and she needs someone to like be like the light of the sun hitting her outside.
Yeah.
But in her pain and hurt from the past, she's now gone into like her little museum house in the middle of nowhere.
Yes.
And it's funny because it's like everything about her screams extrovert. This crazy party lifestyle, wild for however long, but because of hurt, she's now put herself in a very introverted situation, which maybe makes her feel safe, but maybe not happy.
Yes.
100%. Now she has her granddaughter with her, Zoe, who they were so freaking cute together. I could not handle them together. And Pam said that she's doing this because Zoe's getting married and she doesn't want Zoe to have to worry about her.
Yes.
And so Logan was like, so you're doing something else for someone, not for yourself.
Exactly.
So Pam's journey is going to be to figure out that she needs to do this for her.
Yeah.
And maybe if it isn't even a romantic connection at the end, that she finds maybe a companion that can like pull her out so that she can be like out and about again and get that like extroverted energy popping off. But she is so funny, so charming, so wild. Just absolutely wild. But what was wild then is her first date.
Yeah.
Her first date is with Robert, who is 65, divorced sound mixer.
Who said he would marry his dog. He goes, I will not be alone. I'll even date my dog if it comes down to it. So he's like, I'm getting with somebody. It's very funny.
But when she walks into this bar, and this was so fascinating to me, is I felt like she reminds me so much of one of my best friends.
Yeah.
She's like seeing one of my best friends at 70 who is electric, like is created differently, like just an electric lightning rod of energy, and you just want to be around her. And she jumps from conversation to conversation and is wild and sparks up the entire room like a wildfire. But watching from the outside was like, oh, Pam is someone who in places she's comfortable with is pulsating wild positive energy. But because she was really uncomfortable on this first date, she walked in with wildly negative energy.
Yeah.
It was like she walked in and it was just right away
Grumpy.
like, it was just like talking about cities changed and we got to get all these cars off the road. And
well, she started to sound like
full conspiracy.
She started to sound like Crazy Wood Lady.
Yeah, it was conspiracy
my
theory.
Aunt is the sweetest woman ever, but you start talking to her a while at the Christmas party and she starts telling you about the aliens landing and the like conspiracies, and you start to get like, oh, you're kind of Crazy Wood Lady. Like you're kind of out there reading Facebook posts and no one's like asking you any questions about like whether that makes any sense or not. Cause she started getting real like, and the agencies are out there.
Yeah, and she's just like, private airlines, and I signed an NDA, but like because of this recession, I shouldn't have. And you're like,
oh, the big one's coming.
And it was just like, so intense. It was just like, there's TikTok, and everyone's doing this TikTok thing, and I'm going to end myself if I see one more fucking Star Wars movie.
Which is not her energy at all. She was so fun and loving in all the other parts of the show.
That's what I'm saying. It was so obvious that she's someone who, when she doesn't feel safe in a situation or comfortable, she fills the air because she's a chatter. But it's in her like nervousness. There's a negativity there versus like everything about her is like this positive,
right?
Like light energy.
Yeah.
And Robert is not having it. Robert hated her.
Robert
so
just halfway through calls her out so hard. He goes, "You've not asked me one thing. You don't know anything about me." He got so sensitive.
He's like, "You're a trip."
Yeah, he's just like, I'm like, okay, Robert, chill, dude. You said you were gonna marry your dog, okay?
Yeah, get it together.
And listen, Robert, we love you, but like, it's a little bit like, how about just like have fun with this person and then call it? Like, you don't need to be a dick.
To Robert's credit, if I was in Robert's shoes, I'd be like, I need the check immediately. I'd be like, I gotta figure out how to leave.
She did not represent herself how she is.
And it was just, and she didn't ask a thing about him, and it was all
she wasn't interested.
Negative, and it was
which I understand. But she admitted later, she's like, when I get nervous or whenever I feel like a nervous kind of energy or like our conversation isn't going where, I fill it with just kind of chaos. Yes. And it was like, that's what she did.
Yes. And obviously, like, as a person, she is like extremely energetic and all this anyways, but it was in that nervousness that it was a different type of energy. But yeah, at a certain point I was like, okay, Robert, just chill. Just like, he got a
little irritable and kind of hurt.
Yeah.
It was a little sensitive. It was like, chill.
I'm like, just get a good laugh out of it.
Just be like, this woman's a character. We're having a good time.
And just be like, tell me more about, whatever wild turn you're, taking this conversation.
Maybe he had been on like his 88th date of the year and he's like, I don't know. But yeah, he got a little.
But he is like, he huffs out and it's just like, goodbye.
You don't know anything about me. And I was like, okay.
And she's like, oh, I know who you are. And she did that.
Yeah. She's like, you're one of them. You're watching me from the agency. It was very funny.
But yeah, she tells Logan that she babbles when she said, I babble when I'm nervous. And, and Logan's like, I just want you to be you. Maybe try taking a sip of water when you feel like you're filling the space too much.
Good advice.
Very good advice. Such incredible advice from Logan when she said something about be interested, not interesting.
That I took for my even self.
That's what I'm saying. I was like,
because I thought, there's so many times even during work or like when I'm working with people or whatever, where there's a dull, and I fill it with like a funny story or I fill it with a thing or a bit or whatever, and I go, how about just be Don't just let it be and then be interested in someone. It's like, oh, you know what? That's a really good.
It was such a powerful self-reflection moment because I do the same thing when I'm socially feeling uncomfortable. I fill space. Like if I'm at a party, all of a sudden I'll be in a corner talking with people.
Someone just kind of goes silent.
No, and I leave the party and I go, what the fuck?
I can be guilty of that.
And I'm embarrassed because I'm like, what did I just rant about and say and talk at this person for 30 minutes?
Some people are so comfortable with not saying anything.
I'm so jealous.
I remember, I will always remember this. I was at a Christmas party.
Yeah.
And I was talking to two people and I intentionally didn't try to talk too much.
Yeah.
And they stopped and we sat there. There was three of us and we're all holding drinks and I remember just sitting there and there were moments of 15 seconds. And I was just like, are you motherfuckers not going to say anything? So then I start, filling the air with some bullshit because I'm like, this is unbelievable. You guys are psychopaths. But some people are okay with just going, oh, cool. I've never thought about that. And I'm like,
I wish.
That is serial killer to me. It's so foreign to me to just sit in a group of people and not say a word and have it not be flowing.
I'm so envious because it's just comfort. I mean, sometimes that's how people handle their nervousness, but sometimes it can be people who are just comfortable with just observing.
100%.
And I'm like, it's like a meditative energy.
And I usually judge it and go you have your personality list, you're a 0 personality wise. But then I kind of go, maybe I'm just insecure. And so I need to kind of figure that out.
I think that's what it is.
Some people can sit in that shit and I'm blown away.
When I was reflecting on myself after I hear the be interested, not interesting, I was like, oh, I need to work on a lot of insecurity stuff and a lot of validation stuff. Because let's just say though, that when there's a pause in a conversation at, let's just say, a Christmas party, we don't have to fill the space about bullshit or about us. We can be interested and ask questions. And that's the thing that it's like I need to work on, where I'm like in that the discomfort of meeting someone new. It's be interested, not interesting. And I loved that motto.
Great
because think how much you learn in life and how much more zesty life is.
Well, you know all about
when you
you.
Are interested in you exactly.
And then you feel kind of empty when you just blabber on about yourself for a long time. You're like, that was what you. Anyway.
I thought it was such a 10. And
well, it really helped that second date.
I gotta say, talk about someone taking someone's advice. Pam walked into that second date and was a different person entirely. She right away walked in. You could tell she was really doing her best to hold back, pull back. She goes on a second date with a guy named Paul. He's 62. He is a singer-songwriter. No kids, never been married. He's rocking the turquoise rings. It was absolutely killing me.
I will be. He's like, I have a gig coming up this Thursday.
he's like, there's that one bar, they have the open mic and I sing there pretty much every single week.
Very funny.
But she was having so much fun with him on the date. And because she was really taking Logan's advice and the conversation was mutual.
Yeah.
And it's talking about then meeting the right people for the right people too. Robert, not the right vibe for her versus Paul. I love when she said, I'm not everybody's cup of tea. And he's like, why would you want to be? That's boring.
That was
Evan.
Cool.
My heart opened up into a million pieces when he said that. It was just like, he seemed to so appreciate her for her uniqueness.
Yeah. Yeah. I also got to say, it'd be hard to date rock stars and then date normal people.
Well,
because there's a little bit of these people are awesome and living crazy lives and amazing personalities. And then to just be go to lunch with this Jim, you know what I mean? I will say, I can understand why she didn't date for so long. It's like, dude, I'm used to dating the fire,
Let's talk about that in a second because I think that connects to something after. But the date, it went great. She hopped in and kissed him.
Yeah.
That was wild.
Yeah. He's like, whoa.
They liked each other, seemed to like each other. And then on the drive back, she tells Logan, she's like, it's nice to be with someone when you're looking forward to tomorrow and not just thinking about yesterday.
Yeah. It's like a lyric.
Dude.
Yeah.
I mean, I was very emotional, especially what she's been struggling with. The idea that she's always thinking about yesterday.
Yeah.
And at the age of 70 to be I'm looking forward to tomorrow.
Yeah.
Well, after the date though, she's all all into Paul, and then she starts to pull back. Granddaughter Zoe's like, what's the deal? Why are you pulling back? And she's like, I think he might be more into himself. He said he was going to be gone. And that's when Zoe encouraged her. She's like, just send the message. Let him know you like him. Let him know you want to get together with him when he gets back in town. Worst case scenario, he shuts you down. We block him. You know, let's just put yourself out there. And she does. But in this moment, then Zoe's like, let's look up his TikTok. They pull up his TikTok and we see Paul singing at the camera, directly looking into the camera. Granddaughter, fucking badass granddaughter Zoe starts dying laughing. And she's apologizing. She's like, sorry. But she is so embarrassed by this guy, Paul. and then Pam is like, I think it's cute, but he better not sing. This is the beginning of the end of them.
100%.
To your point, as a woman who has been with literal famous rock stars.
He's like, oh, your ex? She's like, my ex was in music. He's like, oh, really? She's like, yeah, one of the best.
That's what I'm saying.
And his mind's probably thinking like, sure.
Yeah.
Not actually.
No, he's thinking he does open mics like me and he's got a great voice.
100%.
And she's like, no.
Like,
I don't think you understand.
I rolled with the Beatles and like Mick Jagger and shit.
John Lennon and Keith Richards says that my ex-husband was one of the best singers.
So this is different.
It's different. So what I'm saying
don't fuck around with music, okay?
So what I'm saying
Be a construction worker.
Pam, I think it's going to be hard where even though she was so sweet, she's like, I think it's cute. Yeah. But I do think her dating, I don't think she'll be able to date maybe a singer-songwriter. No. Now, sound mixer, who Robert was.
Sound mixer, painter, constructor, was something.
I'm saying someone in the arts I think would be good for her because she is eccentric.
But
I don't think it's going to be because she like dealt with someone who's like a high level. I think it's like she might look at someone like Paul and be like,
you're just the worst.
You make me feel uncomfortable with singing into the camera.
I agree.
God bless Paul. He seemed like a lovely guy.
Great guy.
Lovely guy.
He's just up against too much there.
But I was dying laughing when Zoe was trying not to laugh because it's like that family lineage is like badass musicians, whatever. And she's just like, what is this?
Also British guy. Yeah. He's like a British rock star. It's like, okay. Yeah.
Pinnacle.
Just get out of that.
But it looks like Pam is going on some other dates, and so maybe these other dates are going to be successful.
Agreed.
Looked like she was having a good time on one of her other dates.
Agreed.
So, but she's really working at this. So you can tell she's now put her heart into this, and I'm excited for Pam.
I agree.
All right, let's move on to our last big player that we met in these first 4 episodes, and that is Lori. Lori was the person I think we saw the least of. We kind of just got her towards like the last portion. Lori is fucking cool as shit. Mm-hmm. Lori is the dream of like what I want to be like when I'm in my when she's 57. She is coolest style ever. That's the one thing that Logan said that I didn't like was when she was trying to change Lori's style. I was like, listen up here, Logan. Leave Lori's style alone. Yes, is she an absolutely beautiful woman? For sure. But those glasses, those are a part of who she is. Like it's her. Like someone who's going to be with her is going to see those glasses and her style and be like, hell yeah. She's so cool. So I didn't like that Logan wanted to take those glasses away from her. And I liked that Lori was like, don't touch the glasses.
Right.
Like, this is Lori. So Lori, she's divorced. She has 2 kids. She's been single for, I believe, 15 years. 2 full jobs. Mm-hmm. Okay. This woman's a badass. She is a student engagement and behavior coach. And then at nighttime, she is a celebrity media correspondent. And this isn't some small level, I'm a quote unquote celebrity media correspondent. She's like big time red carpet. When we see her stylist is there.
Right,
okay.
Right.
Like this is like John Legend part, like this is big time.
Right.
So Lori is in a world that's like, she's rubbing elbows with big time people. And on top of it, Lori is a behavioral coach, which I can imagine that dating as someone who your job is to study behavior would be very challenging.
Yeah, it's tough. It was interesting because I felt for her where it's like, it's easier to date when you're a normie. When you're a normal person, like Suzanne, just living in my big house, live my wine. Normal person.
Yeah.
Pam, it's tough. It's like Pam, it's like dated rock stars,
yeah,
lived the rock star life, saw epic shit that most people don't get to see. It's like once you kind of there, it's tough to kind of just go back to like meeting Jerry down at the restaurant and be like, hi, you know. I feel like Lori's in the same boat a little bit, where it's like,
100%.
You hang out with all these interesting, successful, beautiful people all day. You
study behavior.
You do cool shit. You have cool style. Like, and then you're gonna go meet Jerry down at the bar and be like, hey, and he's like, yeah, I do taxes. It's a little bit like, man, like I'm around interesting shit all the time.
Yeah. Well, dating is so hard in general as it is. What I'm saying,
but it's a little bit like you add this level of like extra flavor that you're around all the time, that it's really hard not to kind of get used to that.
Yeah.
And then want that.
Yeah,
you know
or then
I mean?
like not judge someone early on to be like, I don't find them as interesting. But then sometimes these people that you meet, like let's just say in the entertainment world, who are super interesting right out the gate, can be very toxic or like, you know, whatever. But you're like, but immediately it's like
it's
super
the
dynamic.
Interest of like the fashion, the looks, the personality. Like most of these people are very dynamic in multiple ways. So I feel for her in the way that like you can pigeonhole yourself in without even trying to, but your taste gets adapted to like your surroundings in a way. So her taste is like, we see a preview of that like super cool guy that she like
Felton,
that she like says she likes, whatever.
She's like,
it's
I
like
have a crush on
the
him,
guy
and
looks
I think
insane. He's like the coolest style ever. He's like cool, like, you know what I'm saying? So it's like it's tough when that's
so cute together.
when that's like your bar of like a guy like how many guys you know look like that? Very few.
Yeah.
It was in the industry, it gets the industry, you know, like so when you do that, you just shrink your options. So I feel for her in this process being like, it's going to be harder than most. It's like her and Pam are going to have it harder than most because of their past and their taste and the things they've seen.
Yeah, no, I totally hear that. And I think, like I said too, on top of it, then you add the behavior coach and it's like you're used to analyzing people.
Well, that makes it even harder. It's like being a psychologist when you're trying to date people and you're trying to break down their thing.
Like a psychologist who also like works with celebrities. Fashion. It's like it's challenging.
Yeah.
And to add to it on top of it, when she's having her conversations with Logan and her kids, she's like, it's me. Like I have been again a backbone of this family and I've worked my ass off and been there for my kids simultaneously, and that's been the priority. But like she said, it's like now I'm ready to have like a partner, I'm ready to have a companion. But her daughter had said, you need to find someone who's really confident and someone who also like sees you. Right. But Logan had told Lori that it's like, hey, I think we need to like get into like soft Lori era where we're not in behavioral coach mode. We're not interviewing.
We're not in performance interview mode.
Well, and when she had her first date, I right away was like, it's a full interview. Yeah. But think about this, Lori, that's what she does, is she's like interviewing people.
That's what I'm saying. It's hard to turn off.
Whether it be behaviorally or on the red carpet. So it's like your brain's going to be in that. I mean, that is, it's so tough to just like try to be like, okay, snap. I'm going to now all of a sudden like turn off all these things about
and honest
who I am.
Yeah.
Sure. But she says, she's like, hey, I'm gonna try it. She asked her son, she's like, would you date me? And he's like, no.
Yeah.
That made me laugh so hard.
Because she's like, kind of she's a little, a little bit of a mini handful in that way. Like even the way she was treating the kids, like put my shoes on. Like she's just used to kind of running shit.
Yeah, she's a boss.
And so when you're used to running shit, it's hard to all of a sudden be like, hi, you know what I mean? It's like, who me? It's a little bit like, she's like used to kind of running shit and having people work with her and for her and all this stuff. So,
but that's why I'm of the belief often where it's like, okay, it's going to be when you're dating, it has to be like, you have to figure out your priority of like, am I like really, really, really just wanting to find a partner to the point where I am like down to kind of adjust who I am?
Yeah.
Or would I rather just like be who I am? And if the right person comes along, the right person comes along. I kind of tend to be in a little more of that camp where I'm like, someone like Lori who's so incredible and offers so much. It's like, I totally understand then being in the process where it's like, okay, let's approach this and try to like be in like this like softer era or whatever.
Sure.
But at the same time, it's like, don't dim your light. Like be yourself.
Well, I think it's fine the difference between your light and an inability to partner with someone. You know what I'm saying? Like I do feel like some people, those things blend.
Yeah.
And it's hard to know.
Right.
Like, are you just being too shut down? Are you shutting yourself off to change? Are you shutting yourself off to growth? Or are you dimming your light? And I think that's probably very hard when you're someone balance. Like Lori, who's kind of like has 3 jobs and his businesses. It's really hard to kind of find the balance of like, where does my light?
Yeah.
And maybe like my stubbornness or strength that's too much crossover. And that's probably the thing to figure out.
No, for sure. Well, I also love too when Logan brought up at one point, I think she was talking to Nate, where she was like, when you're dating in your 20s, it's like you're starting a startup company together. And it's like a mutual startup. It's like versus when you're dating in your 50s, 60s, 70s, when you're getting older, it's 2 companies merging together. Mm-hmm. And that is harder because you have 2 companies.
You have cultures.
Yeah.
You have like company cultures. You have the way you do things. It's not as, it's when you're young, it's like, we don't even know what we're doing. Let's build it together.
And when you're like, I have this successful company. I've raised my kids. Yeah. Like I figured it out. I've done it. Mm-hmm. And so now to find a partner, you're having to merge. So there is that challenge 100%. There. But Lori ends up going on her first date with Ty. He's 59, divorced, investor, entrepreneur. The second she walks in, this man has a full-blown foot fetish. He's like, love your matching toenails.
Wild.
He said in the ITMs.
Dude, some of these old guys, they're just like unashamed of just like getting it out there. It's very funny.
In the ITMs, he was just like, man, a woman with gorgeous feet, I'm in. Like, I'm cooked. And I'm like, I kind of love that he just loved it.
She was like, yeah, whatever.
She didn't mind it at all. She was
funny.
Like,
you know when he was doing that thing when he was looking in the distance when he was talking to her?
Yeah.
I thought he spotted other feet. That's what I thought it was. I thought he like saw some other feet as well. And he was kind of like, whoa. Oh, anyway, you know what I mean?
So that was a moment when he was looking away and she was like, what are you looking at? And he's like, oh, do you want me to look here? And she's like, I just feel like maybe something else is more important. Those were the moments where I was like, as far as what Logan was talking about, I'm like, okay, you can say those things and put that out there. If that's what you're comfortable doing, do that. But at the same time, those might be those moments where you're like, okay, I think you make a mental note of that and like kind of go, I don't know how I feel about him like looking off, but maybe like first date, not. But he liked it. He's like, when she was calling me out for that, he's like, ooh, invigorating.
Yeah.
He was like turned on by her being like, what's your problem?
Sure.
So I'm like, foot fetish guy was just like,
a lot of like what he's into kind of like right out there. You know what I mean? It's like, I like to be dominated and I like feet. It's like, got it. Thanks. Can we save that for a different time?
But he was really liking her a lot. But she was in interview mode. Lots of the questions, kind of digging in, kind of red flagging him. Yeah. But at the top of it, she's like, you look so familiar.
Oh my gosh, it was so funny.
You look so familiar. And at the end where he's like, hey, let's exchange numbers. Maybe we can go on a second date. And she was down. She puts his name in her phone and she's like, I have your number
2017.
Already. Plenty of fish.
Right. So clearly they had, but like, but it didn't bring up what they said.
So they had exchanged numbers. Well, what it looked like was, at least from what I was gathering, is they had exchanged numbers and he had never messaged her.
Like they were talking on the app.
Yeah.
Exchanged numbers.
And then he never contacted her. Yeah. And so she was a little bit like, and then she goes, why didn't you message me?
He's like, I don't know what's going on. Ah! He's definitely panicking. He's like, look over here.
So that was crazy that ended that way. But she seemed open to go on a second date with him. She was like, it might be a little more friend zone vibes. I don't know. She didn't seem over the moon about him. He seemed to like her. But we get a preview where Felton, her crush, and her are having dinner together. Yes. And she's like putting out there, hey, are we friend zoned? And I'm living for the fact that she's gonna do that, like putting herself out there and being like, you know what, I'm just gonna say it.
She doesn't lack confidence. No. So go for it.
But but she hadn't before. So I think maybe the encouragement from like Logan and this process is gonna help her be like, you shoot your shot in this situation and put it out there. And if it doesn't work out, it's painful, but we take another date,
Yeah.
Anywho,
great show though.
I love this show.
It's very good.
I absolutely love it.
Easy to talk about. Easy to watch.
It just starts great conversations. I feel like
it's got
too.
Heart. It's got funny. It's got weird. It's got kind of everything that you would expect in a bunch of actual 60-year-olds dating.
And it's like quick.
The editing's great. It just keeps it going.
Shout out to Netflix and Michelle Obama because
great work.
Absolutely crushed.
Crazy.
Love it. And you know what? We're gonna do episodes 5, 6, 7, and 8 next week.
Yeah.
So we'll finish it up. There's only 8 episodes of this series.
It's a 2
So
done.
we'll do one more episode next week of that. And then we're actually going to have family, just so you know, we're going to have 2 episodes next week as well. Yes. Because after next week, after those 2 episodes, we are taking a 2.5 week break during the holidays. And then we'll be back at the top of the year. But yeah, so 2 episodes next week before a little break. Yeah. We'll do the remainder of the Later Daters and then have a little before the holidays episode. So
that'd be awesome.
We love you so much, family. Have a beautiful weekend.
Mwah.
Bye.